Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, U.S. Fed Chair Jerome Powell reiterates his wait-and-see stance.
Despite elevated uncertainty, the economy is in a solid position.
What the Fed's guidance means for our own policy setting with Ronilo Balbieran, economist at the UANP. U.S. President Trump's pronouncements of a truce between Israel and Iran in a fragile state. His announcement came after Iran bombed a U.S. base in Doha. We speak with our kababayan Hannah Grace Guevara, live from Doha, for a first-hand account. And a ceasefire in the Middle East is seen to bring down global oil prices, but a Philippine government official says there is still uncertainty. U.S. strikes in Iran have only set ceasefire between Israel and Iran appears to be taking hold, but that did not stop Trump from lashing out against Israel and Iran for violating the truce.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. I'm not happy with Iran either. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
In a sign of how fragile the truce is, a spokesman for the a quote, abrupt U-turn in prices, possibly leading to lower increases next week or even a rollback if sustained. In a palace briefing, Energy Department officer in charge Sharon Garin said the government is now in talks with oil companies to possibly delay the second round of price hikes this week following the recent fall in global crude prices. But according to Oil Industry Management Bureau Director Rino Abad in an interview on One News sa Totoo Lang, even if global prices decline, it is not guaranteed that pump prices here at home will follow.
Di ho natin masiguro na tutuloy-tuloy yung pagbaba. Dahil nga, admittedly, yung Lunes na trading, bumabaho slightly na nga. At kagabi, nakuha na ho namin yung 69. But that will be subjected pa ng confirmation. We're now faced with Wednesday up to Friday pa, tatlong trading. hindi ho tayo sigurado sa nangyayaring development kung didiretso yung ganong trend.
A Filipino living and working in Doha witnessed Iranian missiles fly over the city's night skies, only to be intercepted by Qatari missiles.
Ano sa'yo ba yan? Yan, syempre, alam mo naman natin.
Iran's missiles were meant to bomb the U.S. airbase in Doha in retaliation for the U.S. attack on 3 of Iran's nuclear sites on Sunday. The situation magnifying the dangerous conditions overseas Filipinos in the Middle East now face as the situation between Israel and Iran remains tense. With us now for more is Hannah Grace Guevara, who works as administrative staff in a German car company in Al Saad, Doha. Good morning, Hannah. Salamat sa pagbigay ng oras at 4:30 pa lang sa madaling araw dyan sa Doha.
Yes po. Good morning din po. Thank you po for having me.
So Hannah, kamusta na kayo riyan sa Al Saad, sa Doha?
Right now, it's safe naman po. Actually, nung time po na yon, sinabi naman din ng government na everything is under control. So, posted naman po siya lagi. So, sabi, okay naman na daw po. Wala namang casualties na nangyari.
Government ba to ng Qatar or ang government ng Philippines via the embassy there?
Government po ng Qatar.
Paano naman
Bale,
yung sa embahada natin?
Sa embahada, actually nire-repost din po nila yung sinasabi ng government ng Qatar. Additionally, nagpo-post po sila ng mga guidelines, for example, ng mga mobile numbers na kung sino pwede kontakin namin. And nagbigay din sila ng parang embassy logbook, whereas doon namin ilalagay yung mga details namin and mga contact numbers if in case na kung ano man po yung kailangan gawin namin kung mag-intensify pa yung situation.
Yung pagkolekta ng datos ninyo naganap nung bago mo kinunan, yung nakita natin just moments ago, no? Anong unang pumasok sa isipan mo nung na-capture mo sa mobile phone mo yung attack na naganap mismo?
At first po, naisip ko yung brother ko kasi nag-work din po siya dito sa Qatar. Tsaka yung kung paano ko siya sasabihin sa parents ko nang hindi sila masyado mag-alala kasi po nun midnight sa Philippines. So, they're all sleeping. So, nag-worry po ako doon and dun sa brother ko nga po na nandito din.
Paano mo naman sila kinausap at paano mo naman nasabi na safe ka?
Ayun po, nag-send lang po ako ng message dun sa group chat namin na like pray for us kasi ganito yung sitwasyon sa Qatar na nung time po kasi hindi pa namin alam kung attack siya against sa Qatar or to anywhere. Ang alam lang namin nung una, confused kami kung missiles ba yun or is it just parang warning na there's something going on. So sinabi ko lang sa parents ko na ngayon okay ako and pinauwi na kami sa work. Di naman ako nasaktan but then pray for us here. So yun po sabi ko.
Oo nga, tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung work no, sa car showroom na iyong pinagtatrabahuhan. Pero nung nakita niyong naganap yon over the skies of Doha, ano yung una naging reaksyon nung mga katrabaho mo at yung mga kliyente sa showroom?
Actually, they were all curious po eh. Kasi yung at first, we just heard a loud sound. Akala namin may accident sa labas. So then, nagsabi namin sa security to check it. Kasi yung walls ng showroom is glass. So, nag-shake talaga siya na nakakatakot. Kasi nung una, parang may malakas lang na hangin. And then, nung lumabas po yung security, that's when he saw na walang accident and there are something sa sky. And then, tinawag niya kami to check. Kasi mukha siyang light lang po na nasa sky. But then, nag-worry kami kasi since yung ibang lahi yung kasama namin na nag-experience din sila ng similar situation, sabi niya, it might be a missile. So, nakita din namin na parang once na mag-intercept yung mga missile or mag-meet, dun siya sumasabog. So, ang lakas po ng sound. So, yun po, parang yung una curious lang, but then, nag-uwian agad din sila. Instruction din sa amin.
Sa ngayon, ang pagkakaintindi ko, may shelter from home na abiso, gobyerno ng Qatar. Pero pwede kayong lumabas, pero kailangan umuwi ka agad. Ito ba yung kanilang latest advice?
Yes po, shelter from home as of the moment. Pero since nag-reassure naman din yung Qatar na walang danger, so yun lang po yung advice sa amin. Kaya pwede din lumabas. Back to normal na din po pagkatapos nung gabi na yun. Parang kinabukasan, lahat nasa work na ulit.
Okay, well, ingat kayo riyan. Hannah, maraming salamat for indulging us with your time and insights. Hannah Grace
Thank you
Guevara, live from Doha. Well, you're watching Money Talks. Coming right up, the Philippines is expected to be the second fastest growing economy here in the Asia Pacific until 2027. And Meralco Power Gen Corp, or MGen, signs power supply deals with energy retailer Evo Energy. Keep it here on One News.
Lahat po ng mapapanood ninyo sa susunod na mga eksena ay fake. Tandaan nyo po yan.
Ngayon, sobrang dali na gumawa ng fake na video. Muka, boses, pwedeng gayahin. Parang totoo, pero hindi.
Yung fake videos, pwedeng gamitin yan para manghingi ng OTP, password, o mag-spread ng maling impormasyon. Gaya nito.
Bro, legit to. High return in just 3 months. Wala kang gagawin.
Oh, boss, bayad ka. Minimum lang 50,000, may 100,000 ka na bukas.
Oops, fake lahat to. Pati kami FAK.
Nanalo ako, pero kailangan daw ng 1,000 pesos, tsaka OTP. Anong OTP?
Inday, na-aksidente si sir. Nasa ospital. Karon dayon nagpadala og kwarta.
Unsa? Ay, fake pala ako. Pati itong buong eksena.
Good morning po. May promo tayo ngayon. Tataasan natin ang credit limit ninyo.
Alright.
Pakisend po ng picture ng credit card nyo.
Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. U.S. stocks climbed this Tuesday as Israel and Iran Community of Asia and the Pacific expects the country's gross domestic product to expand by 5.6% in the second quarter from the 5.4% growth in the first quarter. Year on year, this would be slower than the 6.5% in the second quarter of 2024 and also below the government's target range of 6 to 8% for this year. Let's discuss this further with Ronilo Balbiran, economist at the University of Asia and the Pacific. So good to have you back with us, Prof. Ronnie. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Ma'am
For
Cathy.
joining us. So, what were the drivers of that, or maybe the dependencies for 5.6% growth?
Well, there are two sides to the story, as you mentioned. No? So one, we are expected to grow slightly faster than the first quarter, but it's actually lower than the performance last year. So the performance there is driven by, well, the higher performance against the first quarter is based on expected increase in construction spending. As you know, we expected 11 to 12% growth rate in the construction industry, but that did not happen. We grew only by around 6.8%. So probably that has something to do with the releases in the budget, leading to the election. But we expect second quarter, third quarter, we will have all those releases for infrastructure budgets. So that will actually fuel our spending. That will actually give more jobs, and that will give more purchasing power, and that will lead to more spending, and therefore a higher performance for the second quarter versus the first quarter.
Yeah, but we hadn't even touched yet on the Middle East conflict and maybe the phased fuel price hikes that we're seeing. We're seeing the second one on Thursday. So how might this change the quantum, if you will?
Well, three things. No? So number one, it's a roller coaster ride in the last 24 to 48 hours. No? I think just last night, no, there's a reduction of 9% already in the global price of oil. No? So we can see a roller coaster up, down, depending on probably what Trump will say and how these oil sellers will react on what's happening in the Middle East. No? So, but number two, our model, input-output model, predicts that, well, for every 10% increase in oil prices, that translates to a marginal effect on our inflation. That's actually 0.7% for every 10% increase in
And you
in
consider
oil price.
that marginal? I mean, if you do the maths, then we're back
So-
at the range of the BSP. Right now, we're below that,
Yes,
2 to
yes,
4%
yes.
range.
So if you consider that to my third point, which is for 3 months already, we're below the floor of 2%. No? So therefore, there's really that space, no, for us to work around our output and employment. So there's not much inflation worry from this point because the increase in oil prices have not been totally actualized as predicted. No? So as mentioned by our oil players, no? So it may not happen. The too much increase in oil prices may not happen all the way to next week. No? So, but it really depends on what will happen over the next few days. No? So, but nonetheless, so that 10% is equal to 0.7% inflation. So, still, you are still within the bandwidth of 2 to 4% inflation.
Which brings us to decoupling.
Yes.
As you've said, there is a lot of room to maneuver. Last week's rate cut is seen by the UANP as the start of decoupling
Yes.
from the U.S., from the Fed, which has kept rates on hold for the past 4 meetings. We've already done 5 out of 6 meetings since August of 2024. And when you look at the European Central Bank, they've done 10. So in what way is that decoupling then helping the Philippines, if you will, and what sort of benefits does that bring right now?
Yeah, decoupling in the sense that they're still holding their breath because the numbers in inflation have not been normalized.
The Fed, you mean?
The Fed, no. But in the Philippines, as I've said, we have already 3 months of 1 plus 1%. So that's too much space already. In fact, it's really too much space. You know? So therefore, the problem of the US and the Euro is inflation. Our problem is emerging to be employment. So therefore, I think our challenge and our imagination of how we will propel our economy towards the target of 6 to 8% is actually veering away from the inflation concern, but getting into production. because our inflation for the last 2 years, 2024 and 2023, were actually driven by supply-driven inflation, by the lack of supply of food. And therefore, our inflation was heavily driven by less supply of food, and therefore, food inflation. So, it cannot be solved by rate hikes. So, and therefore...
Or rate cuts.
Rate hikes because they address the inflation from the point of view of demand. They just had to slow down the economy.
But from our point of view...
From our point of view, now, okay, it's now time for BSP to support the national government. Let's propel the economy because you cannot just produce.
When you talk to the governor, he'll say, we're an inflation targeting central bank here.
Yeah, that's...
that's the mandate.
Yes,
that's first and foremost
and in fact,
it has to act on.
Yes, in fact, so if you have a target of 2 to 4%, you can already, breathe a little bit. Versus Powell, he is still not yet in that particular breathable space. So, but us, we have from 1.3 all the way to 4%. So therefore, we can concentrate on the third quarter and the fourth quarter numbers. Because, well, we're happy, we're second fastest growing economy, but is that what we want? So what we want is 6 to 8%. That's the target. That's the Philippine Development Plan target. That's the only way for us to actually minimize the poverty level. So we cannot minimize poverty level if we don't produce jobs. So we need to produce jobs, quality jobs. And what is our April unemployment number? It has actually gone up from the average of 2022-2023 of 3.1%.
So what is
now
it
we're at
going
4.1%.
to take to generate those jobs? When we take into consideration something that we hadn't discussed yet, the end of the tariff pause on July 9th, that is also a big event risk that's coming up in the next few weeks.
So I think this is a dual approach. So number one, the BSP may want to consider a more aggressive rate cut towards the third quarter. If you ask me, my preference is to bring it down to 4.5 to 4%. So, and you have that space. Remember, that's a lot of excited rate hikes last year and the year before. No? So now it's a time to test the market. Why? What will benefit construction? So if you have a significant reduction in interest rate, that will help construction. That will also help the glut, so-called, in the real estate market. And that will also help our investment environment as you actually bring down interest rates. So that will generate a lot of jobs and a lot of income, and that will generate faster GDP growth. Now, at this rate, we will not hit 6% at the rate of 5.25. Even if you reduce it around 5% policy rate by the third quarter, we will not hit 6%. So the only way for me is to bring it down to 4.5 to 4 so that we can hit more than 6% for the full year of 2025.
Okay. We'll put you to account and speak.
Yeah,
yes.
and to answer your tariff, so exchange rate, I think the BSP, now that we have lower than floor inflation rate, then the BSP can still allow a higher exchange rate. Why? Because as you have these particular trade wars, China's goods will be seeking other countries, and the Philippines is the most the most important target because of the size of our population. No? So these cheaper Chinese goods will seek the Philippine market. Okay. And that will actually challenge our local production and local employment. So the way to is to allow an increase in exchange rate so that we more or less protect our local production, and that will actually protect our job generation.
We have half a minute to go.
Yes.
What's the exchange rate then, the ideal exchange rate for the second half to achieve 6 to 8%?
I would allow the exchange rate to go as high as 61 for us to shield ourselves from this quote-unquote dumping of Chinese goods and kill our local producers.
All right. Well, we'll hold you to account then. And in the next invite, I will ask you how to connect the dots with 61 to the dollar. Ronilo Balberan of UANP. S&P Global. headlines from around the world. In the Netherlands, leaders from the member countries of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, New Yorkers are braving the sweltering heat. Millions of Americans in major cities across the Northeast are facing record-high temperatures. In Central Park, temperatures could reach 99 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius, surpassing the previous high of 96. Record-smashing heat levels are also expected kilometer immersed tunnels set to link Denmark and Germany under the Baltic Sea. The exhibit features tiny diggers, ships, and workers replicating the real-life construction site. Unlike bored tunnels, this one is made from hollow concrete segments cast on land and assembled underwater, much like giant Lego bricks. Once complete, it will link Denmark's Lolland Island with Germany's Weimar. Could I have one at home, a setup like that from Lego? That is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. here on One News. We're also streamed live on YouTube and on our Facebook channels. Have a great day ahead.